This case has modular moving parts and support for some massive, and I do mean massive fans, but is the Frame 4000D a worthy successor to its 2019 predecessor? And does it try too much to set itself apart? We're gonna find out all that right here, right now on Robeytech. Well, it's been 6 years since the release of the Corsair 4000D, and we've seen that case just about everywhere. Wait, is that it over there? Oh, no, is that it over there? Oh, there's another one over there. Actually, we've probably used it a time or 12. So when Corsair announced a revamp on the 4000D, we were pretty eager to see what changes they would make to the case that was already beloved by many. And Corsair was kind enough to send us over one so we could check it out so that we could give you the Robeytech Ultimate Case review of the Corsair Frame 4000D. Now, let's get to know the case a little bit better. It's huggable, and that's important. At the time of this video, the Frame 4000D was available in black or white with a starting price of $95. This version is the bare bones, bring your own fans version. If you'd rather have fans that come with the case, Corsair does offer the Frame 4000D RS with 3 of their RS120 non-RGB performance fans for $100, or the Frame 4000D RS ARGB for $110 with, you guessed it, 3 of their RS120 ARGB performance fans. For this review, we're looking at the $95 Frame 4000D, so our comparisons and comments will focus on this specific model. So when we start looking at comparable cases, we see cases like the newly redesigned NZXT H5 Flow and the Lian Li Landcool 207, which you can check out our reviews for both of those cases right here. Now the Landcool falls within $10 of this case, with the H5 Flow matching it. As far as physical dimensions go, the Frame 4000D is similar in length and width to the Asus TUF Gaming GT302, but it has a height closer to the APNX V1. When it comes to weight, the Frame 4000D clocks in at around 23 pounds or 10.4 kilograms. Comparatively, that weight is comparable to cases like the Antec C8 and the Corsair 3500X. So not the heaviest case we've seen, but it's not really a featherweight either. As for I/O and controls, the Frame 4000D has 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, 1 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C port, and a combo audio jack and a power button that are all located on the bottom, that's right, the bottom of the front panel, which is either super convenient if you want to use your front I/O, but you don't want your cables hanging over your system, or you could absolutely hate this if you have your PC on the floor. So this is totally a personal choice whether you like it down here or you want it up here. Oh, and the one thing on the power button, you know what? It's just as easy to press as those like and subscribe and notification buttons, which you should do right now. Now, moving inside the case is almost straightforward thanks to the Frame 4000D's toolless design. Each removable panel is secured in place by thumb screws and also with pull tabs, which did feel a little weird if you're used to cases either having one or the other. Just so you're aware, these pull tabs take some effort to pull, like more than you think. And if you want to see me struggle, you should watch the Intel Mod Workshop episode where we built inside of the Frame 4000D, which you can check out right here. I guess you really can't have too much security, but just be aware the panels do come off. Speaking of panels, Corsair has a number of interchangeable panels for the Frame 4000D in case you want to modify the way the case looks. And this has been a theme with Corsair cases, whether that's the interchangeable stuff on the 3500X or 6500X, as well as now the Frame 4000D. In fact, this thing is so interchangeable, you can actually swap out things like motherboard trays and even the side panels to make like a mixed panda build. You know, it's all about creating character if you want to add some like differentiation with your case. Also, they also include like a plastic panel for the PSU shroud to diffuse either RGB lighting or to help you hide those nasty cables that are sitting down below. Not in this build though, because we handle our cables correctly. Now for motherboards, the Frame 4000D can fit ITX, Micro ATX, and ATX motherboards, as well as eATX motherboards with a width of 277 millimeters. This is one instance where we can pretty much confidently say that this can actually handle eATX boards, so long as it falls within Corsair specs. Now the Frame 4000D is also a back connect or BTF supporting case, so all of the appropriate cutouts are there for your cable obscuring needs, and there's plenty of room for any cabling and connectors you need to plug in. What's also crazy though, is that the whole motherboard tray can be removed from the case like I was talking about earlier. So if you wanted to slap a white tray into the black case, you could totally do that. Now as for GPU support, the Frame 4000D has support for GPUs with a max length of 345 millimeters, with fans installed in the front of the case. That number is important if you're thinking about 5090s. This should be enough room for most Radeon Arc B series, RTX 50 series GPUs, but you're out of luck if you're talking about the big beefy 50 series cards. Those things can push like 359 millimeters in length. Even without front fans, moving to side intake, it would be super tight. So we just can't confirm because we don't have a lot of those cards yet. So something to be aware of, that you may want to try it before you buy it. As always, we always recommend checking with your GPU manufacturer to see if your GPU of choice will fit. Moving on to support for fans and cooling, the Frame 4000D can fit up to 3 120, 2 140, or 200 fans, 200 millimeter tracts of land. I mean, they're so big. And then you can do 3 120, 2 140, or 2 160 millimeter fans at the case top. It's like airflow for days, just blowing in there. It's like a hurricane. Now as for the back, it's only 120 or 140. No giant fans in the back. Come on, Corsair. Now the Frame 4000D also has support for either 3 120 or 2 140 millimeter fans at the case side if you remove the internal panel covering the fan rails, which again, you could switch out to with white if you wanted to. It's all interchangeable. Now this is where one of the Frame 4000D's unique features actually comes into play. Corsair introduces something they're calling the InfiniRail system. Not the Infinity Stone system, the InfiniRail system. This system takes the inside fan mounting rail at the top in front of the case and puts it on a track that can be adjusted to the size of the fans you want to use. It's not unlike we've seen with like small form factor cases where you have a center plane that can be adjusted to fit different size components. Now moving on to radiator support, the Frame 4000D can support 240, 280, and 360 millimeter radiators at the case front, side, and top. So you have lots of options there, and actually a lot more options than the original 4000D. Now, if you wanted the option to use a CPU air cooler in the Frame 4000D, you absolutely can. The Frame 4000D has 170 millimeters of clearance inside for CPU air coolers. This is just enough space for massive air coolers like the Noctua NH-D15 G2 or the Cooler Master MA824 Stealth. Now moving on, let's talk about storage space. The Frame 4000D has room for up to 4 2.5-inch SSDs or up to 2 3.5-inch hard drives thanks to 2 mounting plates. One plate is located on the opposite side of the motherboard tray while the other sits at the bottom of the case. Both plates also have indentations for IQ Link hubs, which is a super nice touch and something I actually really appreciated about this build. The fact that you can lock those in there, it makes it really easy to have like 90-degree bends and stuff like that and keep your cables looking nice and clean. As for PSU support, the Frame 4000D can support PSUs with a length of up to 220 millimeters, so plenty of room for most modern PSUs here. Interestingly, the Frame 4000D has 2 thumb screws here to secure your power supply in place. Why 2 and not 4? Well, we may never know, and it says on the Corsair website if you're gonna move it around a lot, we suggest putting in all 4, but still kind of a cool touch, I guess. Let me know it in the comments if you think so. So talking about internal connections, the Frame 4000D has a USB 3, USB-C, and HD audio cable that match the color of the case except for those multicolored bits, and it has a unified front panel connector. Come on! Someday, Corsair, you'll have no colored cables on your HD audio cable. Now that we know the ins and the outs of the Frame 4000D, let's look at its thermal performance. As a reminder, the specs for our test bench are on the screen here. Because this came with no fans, we use the NZXT fans we use in all of our other cases to make sure that we normalize testing. Now these are the same parts we use in all of our PC case tests every time. All of this done is in the same testing environment with the same tests and the same Intel stock CPU power settings. Basically, we science. And now because we have like 40 something cases that are basically in our data set, we're gonna try to focus in on the cases surrounding the case in the review alongside our entire roster of tested cases. Now, onto the data, starting with our AIO test. While at idle, the Frame 4000D averaged 24 degrees Celsius. This put it in line with cases like the Antec C5 and C7, as well as the Fractal North XL glass. Now moving on to our CPU load test, the Frame 4000D averaged a respectable 71 degrees Celsius. In this test, the 4000D got chummy with like the LandCool 207 and the Fractal North XL glass, which are 2 very good friends to have. As for gaming, the Frame 4000D stayed close to the cooler side of our tested cases at an average of 41 degrees Celsius. These temps put it in line with cases like the NZXT H7 Flow and the Fantex Eclipse G400A. Not too shabby, but this is only part of the Frame 4000D's thermal story. Now, since the Frame 4000D is an airflow case, we have to talk about its performance with an air cooler. At idle, the Frame 4000D averaged around 24 degrees Celsius. This temperature placed it in contention for the coolest airflow cases at idle with the NZXT H5 Flow and the Geometric Future Model 5. The story is similar under CPU load. While it couldn't match the H5, the Frame 4000D competed with cases like the Landcool 207, the North XL Mesh, the Model 5 Mesh, and the Eclipse G400A, all at averages of around 76 degrees Celsius. And in gaming, the Frame 4000D got some pushback from the same crowd of cases, landing at an average of 45 degrees Celsius, sandwiching it in between the Landcool 207 and the Model 5. As for GPU temperatures at idle, the Frame 4000D held our test GPU at a thermal average of 31 degrees Celsius. This positioned the Frame 4000D between the NZXT H9 Flow and its Corsair cousin, the 3500X. Under GPU load in our 1440p gaming benchmarks, the Frame 4000D held an average GPU temp of 62 degrees. This positioned it next to cases like the Fractal North XL Mesh and the APNX V1. For context, this was right in the middle of our full roster. Now, the story isn't a whole lot different when we look at our results for CPU air cooling, 31 degrees at idle and 61 while gaming, and still right smack in the middle. So with those thermals tested and shown and a build or two completed, would we recommend the Frame 4000D as your next PC case? Well, there is nothing glaring about the Frame 4000D that would keep us from recommending it, but it does have a couple things that are worth bringing up in case you're looking at picking one up for yourself. The first thing we need to talk about is the InfiniRail system. Again, not Infinity Stones, and if you put all your fans together, it will not help you defeat Thanos. We always love to see manufacturers taking risks and trying new things to push designs forward. The InfiniRail system takes a page out of SFF case handbooks by creating an adjustment point for hardware, but it's more like a quickly scribbled note than a full copy, because this railing is so long and on the thinner side that it has no center support, and it's not very rigid. Now, that's not to say that it's flimsy, but it just means that the builders need to be aware of how much downward pressure they're applying when installing fans or radiators. Just don't push too hard. Also, we had issues with the rails lining up to where they needed to be to install 120mm fans properly in the front. The guidance on the top is nice, and honestly, it's also weird being able to put a 240mm AIO because the screw holes are kind of in weird places, so it's not as free as we'd like. But on the front side, it was kind of super confusing. To do this, we had to remove the screws entirely, so in order to basically get the rails to go right in place. And the way it was indicated at the front looked like it, out of the box, should fit 120mm fans. It's worth taking a look at the Mod Workshop video I showed you a little bit earlier, because you can see me punch my ticket for the struggle bus here. Now, the second consideration here is that as a BTF case, you are going to have more line of sight to the cabling in the back if you're using this as a non-BTF configuration. Just meaning that you're going to need to keep your cables more tidy if you don't want people to see them, because there's a lot more holes to see stuff. Fortunately, the Frame 4000D has a number of internal Velcro ties and a generous amount of places to use zip ties, which I'm all about, and honestly, cable managing in this was a lot of fun. So does the Frame 4000D compare to the original 4000D? Well, that's a lot like asking how you compare to your younger self. You've probably changed a few things about yourself over the years. You've tried some new things and failed, and other things that helped you grow. In a lot of ways, we see the Frame 4000D's growth in a similar way. It has updated support for large fans and many types of fans, as well as radiators. It also has changes that it's made to basically support better airflow, and it hops in to support back connect and BTF motherboards, which are all positives. But there are also some execution on those ideas that it left us a little bit bummed. We love the idea of the InfiniRail system, but it's kind of InfiniRail and also InfiniFail, with execution being about 50-50. The guidance for the top was awesome, but the front, not so much. The plastic panel for the PSU shroud had us a bit confused at first because it looked like it blocked airflow, but then we looked at the product page and found out, oh, it's all about diffusing and hiding cables or RGB, and there's even one that fully blocks it out if you want. But when we look at the whole picture, the Corsair Frame 4000D does a good job at handling thermals. It's an enjoyable case to build in. I really did enjoy the build, and they look good when they're done, and it's an enjoyable case to basically look at afterwards. And it provides a lot more space and options to work with than the original. So as long as you take into consideration GPU length, with front fans, you manage your cables well, and you don't try to stack a bunch of weight on top of the top fan rail, we'll give the Frame 4000D our stamp of approval in terms of a case that we would recommend. Just read the instructions and check out the product page before you start, or maybe check out our full stream if you want to do that too. And with that, this one's done. Those were our thoughts on the Frame 4000D, but We want to know what you think. If you've built in the original 4000D case, what do you think of Corsair's redesign? What do you think of the new features like the InfiniRail? And what do you think about the ability to swap parts in between cases and make the whole thing look different and have like your own unique style? I'd love to know that down in the comments below. Now, while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell. That way you get a notification each and every time we post videos like this or other reviews right here at Robeytech. And maybe you want to talk about what parts you put inside of this case, or maybe this case isn't the right case for you and you want to further the conversation, head over to our Discord server, discord.gg/Robeytech. Amazing place to talk to other tech and PC enthusiasts about this very same issue. And you know what? You might just make a friend. Also, follow us at Robeytech absolutely everywhere. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.